Welcome to our chat. We have, as promised, we are bringing a HR expert on board, and this is Alyssa. Alyssa is an expert at creating great working environments for employees and also not getting sued. So by that
Great
I
skill.
mean she creates incredibly high functioning environments in companies, but in a way that makes sure that your company is protected, which is exactly what HR should do.
Hmm.
And Alyssa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So again, my name's Alyssa, and as Jen said, I'm an HR leader, primarily in startups. My main focus is usually shaping, building, enhancing company culture to make sure that not only your business objectives are being met and exceeded, but employees are happy and want to be productive and contribute and stick around and grow with companies as opposed to pop around and leave. So that's basically me in a nutshell.
Great. And we've all worked
We
together before,
Yes.
so we
we have.
know that what you're saying is true.
Yes,
Yeah,
they'll call my bluff if I say something
Exactly.
that's not true.
yeah. To be clear, there was a period of time where we all worked for the same company. Um, Great times.
Yeah. And look, how many years later, here we are,
Here we
Yeah,
are.
which
yeah.
is, yeah, it's actually really great.
It is good, actually. It's great.
A little reunion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have actually in the past, Alyssa, talked about how the notion of culture in the workforce gives us like the ick when we hear about it, just
Hmm.
to hear people talking about it, because we wonder if you were just creating a good working environment and were treating your employees like adults, would you need to describe a culture?
It's
Hmm.
almost like the more you say culture, the less you actually have a good company culture. It should almost
Exactly.
speak for itself.
Yeah,
Yes,
we have.
inversely proportional.
Yes.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and a lot of companies these days are like using it as a way to attract talent, but like
Yes.
as you said, you shouldn't have to promote it. It should speak for itself through your employees, your past employees, things like that. You don't have to put it all over your careers website. Like our culture
No.
is amazing because that just triggers alarm bells to me,
Yeah,
and that yeah, something's not quite working.
exactly.
We're like family.
Hmm.
That one.
Jenny hates that.
I hate that one so much.
We have our own families. We don't need
Yeah. Like,
And there are
family.
enough of a
I don't need
handful.
a
We
work
don't need
wife or a
more.
work husband or a work
Hmm.
brother-in-law
Oh.
or yeah,
We just
no
get our
thank you.
jobs done and get along with each other,
Yeah,
and that will suffice.
right?
And move on with their lives. Yeah.
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 Very pragmatic, us three. And they say that
Hmm.
women are emotional at work.
Right?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. How often, Alyssa, I'd love to know, have you found that, working with the executive team, are they really focused on the culture, or are they more kind of just like, let's get people to do as much work as possible and get, as much profit as possible? Or have any executives actually been like, what's the culture really like? Or have they never even, bothered to find out?
And as a disclaimer, I am one of those executives that Alyssa was probably talking
We'll
about.
take
So
Jen
she will
out of
say
it.
whatever she wants about me,
Yeah.
and I won't hold it against her.
We'll take Jen out of it.
Hmm.
Good ones do. Decent ones care about it when there's a problem.
Hmm.
And then terrible ones don't care about it at all and only care about profit. But I feel like more executives are starting to realize, in not always the best ways, and we can get into that later because they think about it way too late. Is like, oh, maybe we do need to care about this because people keep leaving. I find that the most often when executives start caring about culture is when there's like a mass exodus of employees and they're like, well, why? And then, your HR person will come and be like, well, our culture needs work. And like, well, what do you mean our culture needs work? And then, you start listing off the reasons. And then it's like, what's the quickest fix so people stop leaving and we can get back to like making money? And
My
that's,
God.
I'm sure if you asked a lot of HR leaders out there, they would say that's a pretty
Hmm.
common problem
Hmm.
across the industry. That doesn't matter the industry, any
Yeah.
company, similar, same. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
normally at that point, the answer is pay them more because they already
Yeah.
hate this.
Yeah,
So
like you can't throw a pizza party and expect everyone to turn around and be like, "Oh, this company is amazing," or
Yeah.
put an
mm,
Xbox in the break room
Hmm.
and be like, "Now everyone will want to stay." It's like now you need to throw money at the problem, whereas if you kind of built it from the beginning, then you wouldn't have to pay all this money, and you could actually do it in ways that aren't monetary, but or they're like, "Oh, we could promote this person or throw a raise at this person." They don't realize it's like a band-aid over a bullet wound that you're gonna lose these people regardless. You might have saved yourself 3, 6 months max, but likely at this point, if people are that dissatisfied, nothing you can do really to be able to turn it around without like I said, drastic measures. But even still, like the damage might already be done at that point.
Yeah.
Not to mention the impact on productivity. So you might be successful in making somebody stay, but just because they're physically there or virtually doesn't mean that they're actually like a thriving, productive
And then
employee.
you're also damaging other people in the company because they're going to find out that this person got a raise and they didn't get a raise. So now they're like, "Oh, do I need to threaten to quit in order to get a raise?" So then you're hurting the productivity of potentially an entire team just to retain one person for like maybe 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
And that also fits over where if the you can get executives who all of a sudden care about employee retention because it's bad, and so they'll go out of their way to keep everybody. And
Yeah.
so but that then creates its own problem if they're keeping low performers, and
Yeah.
then that creates morale issues as well, and it just compounds the issue.
Exactly. Whereas like if you just did it from the beginning,
Yeah.
then you wouldn't be in such a deep hole that you have to
Yeah.
try and dig out of.
And as you said, it's such a drastic thing they'd have to do to like kind of
Mhm.
really change the entire culture that sometimes it's like almost too big to even tackle. So they just
Yeah.
kind of like put band-aids on it, as you said, because yeah, it would just either cost too much or too much effort, or they might uncover things they don't want to know, right? They're kind of just like, I'd rather
Exactly.
not know and I'd rather
Yeah.
just stick a band-aid on it.
They wanna bury their head in the sand and not really attack the root problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they may not even have the lift to be able to do it, like, they may not have the team to be able to do it,
Mm-hmm.
like, you need a pretty strong people leader as well as buy-in from the executives to even implement any, like, initiatives that
Mm-hmm.
would be, lasting.
Yeah. It's hard for HR sometimes too, right? You're kind of like, um, you can't really do everything. Your hands are kind of tied with a lot of things, and then if you bring it up to the executives, like you might get not in trouble, but that might look bad on you if they don't want to know, and like
Yeah.
you might want to fix things, but they might not want to, so therefore you're kind of at loggerheads
Oh,
then
yeah.
with the
A lot of
executives.
the time, it falls on people leaders where they're like the execs would be like, "Well, we don't have time to fix it, you fix it." And they don't
Mm-hmm.
realize that it has to be like a collective
Yeah.
approach. Like, I can bring you the initiatives and the data and like the ideas and say like, "Hey, this is how we can fix, these certain things together." But like you
Mm-hmm.
can't just rely on your people leaders to fix everything. Like there has to be a consensus across departments because employees trust their leaders and like they can
Mm-hmm.
trust their HR person, but they also need to trust their manager and their department head. And if their department heads and their managers aren't echoing the same things that the HR leader says, it A makes you distrust your people leader because you're like, why are you guys so disconnected? And then, then they're reluctant to trust their department head because they're like, well, they don't care. If they don't want to do these things that are going to help us, why should I
Mm-hmm.
care about this department head?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then even like in a very like small microcosm of that is very easily seen when it comes to something like a vacation policy, and it can be a great indicator of how much as you go up the hierarchy they actually care about um, exercising the culture that they claim to want,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we myself and Alyssa at previous kind of roles would have been very 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 vocal about you must take your vacation and when you're on like be disconnected and only we'll only talk in if there's an emergency, and that's all well and good, but then if that isn't then action the whole way up the hierarchy, so
Hmm.
someone can be like, okay, well that's all well and good, but I'm still getting emails from my boss when I'm on vacation, or when they're on vacation, they're still emailing me the whole
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
time, or they're still emailing me at nighttime, and like, so they might say they want me to disconnect in the evenings and on my vacation weekends or whatever, but they're not doing it. So if I want to emulate them, or if I want to look good in front of them, I should emulate their behavior, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
like you get that kind of like the trickle down effect is very real. Trickle down economics is not, by the way, but in terms of behavior in companies, it totally is. And when people say like, culture has to come from the top, that's what they mean, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so unfortunately, it means like there's a lot of executives who are like, oh, but I'm just too busy and I don't have the time to behave in a way that's good for the
Yeah.
employees, so the employees will do it. But in reality, you do have that time. You have to make that time,
Mm-hmm.
even if it means hiding the fact that you're doing a bunch of work out of hours. whatever it is you have to do, it's for the benefit of the whole company, and a lot of them aren't really like willing to do that.
No, because a lot of the times, like they'll send messages that'll be like, "Oh, you don't need to respond to this until the morning." Well, it's like, well, you know what? All of these tools now, Slack, Teams, email, have these wonderful functions where you can schedule emails to go out at a certain time. You don't need to send them out at 8 o'clock at night. You can schedule it at 8 o'clock at night to go out at 9 a.m. the next morning. But instead of like take away the vocabulary of you don't need to answer this now, and then just take the extra couple minutes to schedule your email to go out in the morning so that your employee doesn't feel pressured to respond. Because even me to this day, if I get an email later in the evening, 9 times out of 10 I'm responding to it because it's going to be in my brain and I won't stop thinking about it, especially if I have an answer. So I'm going to answer it right away. And I know a lot of other employees would echo the same. They will do the same even though, they might be doing something or they might be out. They feel that obligation to answer, where if it's not something that needs to be looked at until the following day, don't send it till the following day. Don't have it, don't burden your employees with something that's not urgent on their time off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or
So yeah, that's what.
yeah. No, I was gonna say, and the other thing on the flip side is rewarding the people that work evenings and weekends. I hate when I see just go out like, oh, this person pulled an all-nighter, this person
Oh
worked all
God.
weekend, and they're so great. Let's call them out for being awesome. Or like, sure, if it was like an emergency, like we worked in the cybersecurity industry. Sometimes there's incidents where that's
That's
the necessary
Yeah.
beast. You have
yeah.
to
The
pull them
nature
off.
of the work.
You have to work weekends. But there's so many times where it's like a project that you didn't need to pull an all-nighter. You didn't need to work all weekend to get it done, but they still get called out for it. And like that just makes the people that maybe don't have the time because they have, family obligations, other
Mhm.
things, life outside of their job, that they can't work like that, but that doesn't make them any less of a high performer. But they make them feel like, well, what's the point? I'm not going to be able to work those hours.
Yeah.
I'm less than.
And if anybody really knows how you should actually deal with that, you should privately reward the employee with overtime for the extra time that they did. Because the praise doesn't mean anything. And separately, publicly in the company, you should be like, it's come to my attention that people have had to work outside of the normal hours for this. That means that something's broken in our system. So we will look into whether we need to hire more people or we need to like adjust our expectations or look at our milestones in our projects or like whatever that is. Like it should be raised as a thanks to this person, and privately, like, make sure they get the overtime for the extra time that they did, but publicly in the company is like, this is actually a problem. This isn't something to be praised. This is like a failing on the part of the company that this has had to happen.
Yeah. We talked about it a lot, that here, especially versus at home, its focus is more on time spent than output.
Yeah.
And you're rewarded for being stressed and overworked, even though you don't really have to respond to that email about something not urgent, like, right away or at the weekend. There's no need to do that. But the culture or, how your manager works or how their manager works kind of influences what you think you have to do. And so you can't really just work 9 to 5 if your manager is constantly working and sending things and always in an emergency situation, which is crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, that behavior, like if you were trying to kind of loop this back, because not only have we gone off topic from the thing we started talking about, that's not even the topic that we planned on talking about today.
Not at all.
To bring that back around,
Thanks for
if
keeping
you
us
were
on track.
trying to create, and we will use your word culture, a good working culture from the beginning, like it has to be behaviors that starts at the absolute very top and is encouraged the whole way down. If it's not, it doesn't work. Everybody can see it, and it just creates more problems than just not working on your culture at all. Like you'd be better off to say, look, we don't have time to care about this, and at least you're honest about it, than to pretend to care and create mixed messaging and miscommunications.
Absolutely.